session of AddaVantage. And first of all, let me compliment the core committee members who are like working very hard to bring you everything as promised. So we are getting you the second, I think, second session post the formation of this committee, and we'll be having more such sessions lined up. The other parts of the committee, like the subcommittees for CSR membership, they are also working, and we'll have soon more events and programs for all of you. So now, without taking much time, uh, Rakesh and Arvind, we all know. So we'll quickly have a quick introduction of, though they don't need any introduction, but we'll have a quick introduction and then proceed with the session. So Raviji, who is introducing? Is it Vikas Khanna? Or?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Neeraj, for that. So first, a request to all the members to put them who are not talking, just to put themselves on mute. With these, so I have this pleasure of introducing no other than Rakesh Soni. Although needless to say that he needs no introduction. But yes, as since he's a honored guest speaker out here, so it's my privilege, and I'm very privileged to have been graced with this opportunity to introduce our dear Rakesh for this session. Friends, for those who already are not aware about Rakesh, he comes from a very humble background, and he did his schooling in the D. Nobly School from Dhanbad, Jharkhand, where he studied from the years 1980 to 1992. And from Dhanbad, he then did his graduation in St. Xavier's College, where he did his BCom from in the years 1994-1997. So it has been a journey from there, from Dhanbad to Calcutta. His journey has always been an upward spiral. And from there, after graduating from St. Xavier's College, he completed his CA in the year 1998. While doing his chartered accountancy, he was working as an article assistant in the prestigious Lodha & Company. And after completing his chartered accountancy course there, he worked in the Lodha capital markets for approximately 4 years as a manager there. As we all know, Rakesh has this entrepreneurial streak in him, and as a result of which he co-founded one of the firms called the Microsec. He was one of the co-founders there, and it was a full-fledged investment bank which was operating out of Calcutta in 2002. Post that, he had met no other than Ramdevji Agarwal, and who invited him, and therefore he joined Motilal Oswal Private Equity Fund in the year 2008 as one of the founding members of Motilal Oswal. So that has been the journey for Rakesh so far, and then it doesn't stop there, friends. If you are thinking, from moving on from being founding Microsec as well as Motilal Oswal, he then moved on as to the Protria Investment Partners in the year 2015, where he also led from the front, and he led all the consumer-facing investments there, as well as some large brands including Parag Milk, Ceramica Foods, Minda, and many others which is there. In fact, he was instrumental in having led over 10 investments in that in the short span of time. Thereafter, after moving on from Protria, he headed the global strategy and the mergers and acquisition function in the Tata Consumers Products, wherein several key initiatives were driven by Rakesh, including one of the ones he was leading and which ultimately got culminated was the Big Basket platform. He was also instrumental in carving out the foods division from Tata Chemicals into Tata Consumers. So a lot of hard work and work which is not really available, things which are not available in the public domain are things which I'm sharing with you. And all of these after having, and see, Rakesh, like I said, has this entrepreneur streak in him. And so once that object is done and dusted, he then takes up other challenging assignments. And that's what he caused him to move on to Bennett and Coleman Limited as a group director, where he's currently joined. And he is working very closely there, and he is looking to transform the way Bennett and Coleman operates. And there is a lot of things which is planned by him. There are people who are working with him in this assignment, but with a person who has 20 years of experience in media, digital, FMCG, private equity, investment banking, corporate finance space, that's, I believe, is not something which is very difficult to do. He is not only a keen strategist, but also he analyzes the trends, the consumer behaviors very well, and has been instrumental in executing several big transactions. On the personal front, Rakesh has been blessed with two handsome boys, Yashwardhan and Harshvardhan, who are on the way to emulate and probably beat their father. At least they are now taller than him, and he's ably supported by his, like it's always said that behind every successful man there is a woman, and there is where Kavita comes in. She has been a pillar of strength for Rakesh, and she is not only a homemaker but also a parenting counselor and an avid social worker. With these words, I hand over to Rakesh and the moderator for the session, Arvind. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Vikas. It's really appreciative of that interesting introduction, and welcome everybody on this lovely Saturday afternoon where Bombay is finally feeling the chills, and even sort of, Dubai is experiencing winter. So we're not missing Calcutta all that much. I hope that everybody is safe, and that some of us I know may have tested positive or already positive, but as is the practice, people are getting well very soon. So I do hope that all of us get well very, very soon. It's exciting to bring this this conversation and this adda to you. So it's really going to be like an adda. I just want to add a couple of things about Rakesh so that we can keep that in mind while asking our questions. I've met many people in life, but I think Rakesh is clearly one of the most versatile. His joie de vivre, or his love for life, is really inspiring. He's somebody who's always smiling, always happy to help, extremely resourceful, very well networked, and he does have diverse interests ranging from writing to sport to to, of course, the core business that he works on. And even within business, he brings in a very rich experience of investment banking, private equity, working for a pure play consumer brand, and now for a media brand. So really, I think the richness of his experience in the last 25, 26 years of working is something that we all should dig into and learn from as much as possible. And 1.5 hours is not necessarily enough, but I'll do my best. The format is that Rakesh will quickly have some opening comments, and he's got a presentation where he will speak about demystifying the Indian consumer. I have a few questions in mind, which we will then ask him. And then after that, we'll open it up to the floor. What I would request is, in the interest of not having too many disturbances, if people can just write their questions to me on chat, just write to me personally. Even if you write on the full chat, it's fine. But if you can, just direct your questions to me, and I will take the ones that are most attractive. So, or the most pertinent. And we, of course, have to be mindful of time. So we will try and wrap up by 6:30. But if we go a little over, then I'm sure everybody will understand, and depending upon how this goes. So that's the format. And just before I sort of hand it to Rakesh for his initial presentation, what I'd like to say is that, you know, the Indian consumer space is the most spoken about phenomenon for about the last 10 years now. And finally, I think the power of the Indian consumer is coming to the fore. But who really is the Indian consumer? What is the big opportunity in that space? And what are the things that we need to look forward to in terms of the changing trends, the evolving scenario, and what are some of the realities that we all need to be aware of in order to understand the space better, are questions that I'm sure all of us are asking. Because irrespective of whether we belong to manufacturing or services or technology or any other field, I think all of us are inextricably linked to the happenings in the commercial Indian consumer ecosystem, simply because we are an economy driven largely by domestic consumption. So, you know, the power of the Indian consumer really will define whether India will become a 5 trillion economy in the next 3 or 4 years or not. And to tell us more about that, we of course would like to now invite Rakesh Soni, and he can sort of hold forth for the next 20 minutes or so and enlighten us. So thank you very much, everyone. Welcome, Rakesh, and all yours.
Thanks, thanks, Arvind. Thanks, Vikas, for that superlative introduction. I was amazed. I've never heard such good words about myself in one shot and one time. And I think you missed one thing, you know, and I would like to say that in front of everybody. I would rather, you know, grade my biggest achievement to be part of founding Gitanjali. I think one of the biggest achievements that I'm genuinely proud of, and I always talk about it whenever I meet people, is being one of the founding members of Gitanjali, and it wouldn't have been possible without, you know, the support of all of you. It's a momentous occasion, because I have been always on the other side of the table where Arvind is sitting now, and has been part of various interviews that I have been. But good to feel, you know, be on the other side. It's been something that I've been doing for a long time, but never ever, you know, rather I would say got a chance to do it with you folks. So I look forward to this interaction. And we do also have some great consumer minds with us, you know, Sachin being one of them. So I would always lean on to him for his expert advice whenever I think about consumer. So folks, I have a small deck, and you know, just about 10, 12 slides, which I would like to sort of just flash in front of you to just give you my perspective. And most of it, I would say you would know, but it's just about the interpretation of what you see. And so with those words, you know, without wasting much of your time, I'll straight away get into the presentation. Just give me a second. Yeah. So hope you could all see the screen, right? So if you see the screen, the colors that you see on the screen are so vivid, and there is so much of life in this picture, if you see, and that is what Indian consumer is all about. Demystifying Indian consumer is not an easy task, I would say. Rather, I would say it's a task which will actually make you so happy and so intrigued that you will feel that, okay, you know, somewhere you would find yourself being part of this entire demystification that has happened over a period of time. Apart from understanding the Indian consumer, my idea is also to essentially pick the macro trends and sort of gauge the future, that how would the future of Indian consumer look like in the next 10 years. And we can make it interesting by, you know, getting into some Q&A between us. But let me just give you a quick backdrop. You know, we all know that we are the 6th largest economy in the world. We were actually 5th, you know, by the way, but we became 6th because of the COVID impact, and we grew, you know, in comparison to other economies a little more. And today we are the 6th largest economy in the world. 60% of our GDP is consumed by consumption. So that is the largest segment that contributes our GDP. 1 in 4 household today has an income of more than $40,000, which is about 28 lakhs. It's an interesting fact. I'll talk about it a little more going forward, and how does it impact. Only 12 million people are employed by the private sector. and close to about 30 million are employed by the government sector. If I add both, we are about between 50 and 60 million blue and white collar jobs in India, which is less than 3.5–4% of our Indian economy. You can imagine a country where just about 4–5% people are in jobs, and rest of it are either support staff or are self-employed, and they are driving this consumption. Imagine a situation where 20% of your population will be in jobs, and what would that happen? The kind of explosion that it will actually create to the entire consumer world will be absolutely indispensable. 700 million users internet. We are the second largest internet population in the world, and very soon will be the largest. That means a lot. When we talk about internet, it's just not about being user of internet, but what internet can exclude, in terms of consumption is something very, very different. And there are some very interesting facts that I would like to share with you as we proceed. If you look at the three biggest, I would say, factors that stand today, apart from many more, it is about the liquidity. The liquidity is huge today in India. Thanks to demonetization, a lot of money that used to be hoarded in various houses and various areas are now back into in function. And that is quite reflected about when you look at the total AUM that the mutual fund industry has in India. We have close to about 40 lakh crores today. 15% of India's population is below BPL, which used to be much larger earlier, and that shift has happened in the last 10 years. Stable political environment, I'm sure a lot of you would agree, is a huge factor, and I think that this will continue to be there for some time. And globalization. And if you look at the post-COVID world, I think for the first time, the Indian elephant is ready to dance in front of the dragon. It was always a sort of a comparison between India and China, but I think for the first time, China plus one strategy is actually making India a very strong force and a very strong substitute to what China is today for the world. Just to give you a small perspective here, India is about 3% of global GDP today, and China is about 18% of the overall GDP share of the world. We are only at 3. Just imagine what a 3 to 6 will do, in terms of where we are today. We'll talk about it more, but just I thought let me just sort of put the lay of the land today. Now, this is a very interesting chart. It's one of the most loved chart by me. If you look at the right side of the chart, which is the pyramid, we talked about the bottom of the pyramid in India. And when C.S. Prahlad, Dr. C.S. Prahlad, when he coined this word, if you look at the bottom of the pyramid in 2005, was 69% of India population. So 70%, almost 70% of India's population was generating, and which was about 151 million households, was generating income less than $4,000, which is about 2.83 lakh of income in a year. 70% of India population was earning only 3 lakh rupees a year. Today, that number has come down. It is about 40-odd%. Now, 40-odd% of the population in India is generating 3 lakhs a year. In next 10 years, that number will actually be only 15. But what is the change? The change is in the belly. So from a pyramid in 2005 to a Eiffel Tower in 2020, if I would say, to a diamond in 2030. So we are actually looking at a diamond, that how India would become a diamond in the next 10 years. And when India becomes a diamond, what does that mean? It means that 44 plus 34, which is almost like 77–80% of the population of this country will be upper middle class and lower middle class. So you can imagine the consumption boom that this country will see in the next 10 years because of the shift. 70% of our population, which used to generate income which is less than 3 lakhs, will actually move to another 77%, which will generate an income of close to 20 lakhs a year. That's a massive shift. Now, let me just tell you, let me just give you broader numbers, because we talk about India consumption, we talk about India GDP, but what it is look like. If you look at the number, today India GDP is about 200 lakh crores, right? And by FY30, we're expecting it to become about 575 lakh crore. But out of the 2 lakh crore, 60%, as we say, is driven by consumption, which is about 115 lakh crore. And out of that 115 lakh crore was only 31 lakh crore, like about 10 years back. So you can imagine the consumption has grown by 3.5 times in the last 10 years. Whereas if you look at the average growth of economy in the last 10 years would be about 6.5–7%. Now, if the consumption would have gone in line with the growth of the economy, the total consumption should have at best doubled. But it has actually not doubled, but it has actually gone up by 3.5 times. What does that mean? That means that if your GDP grows by 1%, your consumption goes up by 1.5%. So you can imagine when today, when we are at about 1,15,000 crores, how does the number shape up in the next 10 years? And the prediction is that in the next 10 years, the consumption will be actually between 4 to 5x of what it is today. Now when this happens, for the next 10 years, when this entire shift gonna happen, we talk about, right? We spoke about rising income in our pyramid to a diamond chart. We also spoke about many Indians. India is not a country, but it's a continent. It's like a country of 29 countries. Every Indian, every state, every region has its own, taste and preferences. And there is a huge liberalization that is happening in children. So today, if you look at the median age of India, is about 28 years. And in 2030, the median age of the country will be 31 years, whereas the median age of US and China in 2030 will be between 41 and 42. You can imagine, the child which is born in this country in the last 20 years, the kind of democratization that child will have in terms of choosing the product that he or she wants. And India is also a very peculiar state. Every region, every part of the society has their own way of consuming stuff. If you look at the connection, I spoke about 700 million users, and you'll be surprised to know that India today is obviously the cheapest telecom country in the world. More than that, in terms of the data usage, we are only second to China. And very, very, very soon, we would actually be overtaking China when it comes to consumption. And that connection that we're talking about would basically unleash the consumption that we have never seen before. There are a lot of new business models that has emerged, and I'm going to talk about some of them. And I'm sure a lot of you would be engaged in those business models as well, and how those business models will also further shape how consumption plays out in this country. And last but not the least, the COVID. This is one area, or this is one event which has honestly changed the consumer as never before. And there are certain important facts which I'm gonna speak about, which somehow has completely leapfrogged the entire pre and post COVID world. Now today, if I have to talk about the penetration, let's say if you look at this chart, this chart basically talks about the penetration of online retail in Indian consumption. In 2020, the total online market in India was about $20 billion. We are already 40 in 2021. The interesting part is that the overall penetration, which was about 3.5, is already at 4.6. But if I have to remove grocery, because grocery is the largest segment of consumption in India, out of the 1,15,000 crore that I spoke about, almost 35-40 lakh crore is grocery. But if I have to remove grocery from that, the penetration ex grocery in online is 20% already, which means that 1 out of 5 products that is consumed in this country today is already purchased on online, which is a big shift. This shift would have probably taken 5 years, but that shift has happened in 1 year. And this shift is actually permanent. It is not a temporary shift that has happened. It's a permanent shift that has happened, and it is further intensified as we grow. And it is projected that by 2026, the online retail will actually be larger than the entire modern retail industry. So if you look at the modern retail industry today, as we speak, is about $50 billion vis-a-vis online, which is about 40. But by 2026, online will actually be about $120 to $140 billion. And believe me, all these estimates will be overtaken by a margin. And that is what has happened in the past, and that's going to happen in future too. So your online retail will be much larger than the offline retail or the modern retail that we talk about. Today, one out of every 3 person in the top 8 metros is shopping online. And if you look at the new consumer who is coming, 4 out of 5 of them are actually coming from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Today, 95 or 96% of the PIN codes in this country are already connected as far as the online market. And that explosion in terms of value, in terms of consumption, in terms of customers is absolutely unprecedented. If I have to look at the world map, the shift that has happened, like in grocery, if you look at US, in US, about 28% of the population used to buy online grocery, which has now become 67%. And in India, that growth is from 40 to 80%. Now, that's the shift that I'm talking about. And if you look at any cities in India, like as I said, it's in Bangalore, for example, 1 out of every 2 person is actually today buying online. Now, why I'm talking about largely because of I'm largely talking about COVID here because we all know about the other factors, right? We have spoken, read about it. Now, this is something which is actually going to shape the trend going forward, and that is the reason we need to understand little. There are nuances in each and every point here, and I just want to go a little deeper to explain you how consumer trends will shape up in the next 5 to 10 years. Now, if you look at the growth of internet users today, as I said, we are about 700 million users, and in the next 5 years, we would be close to a billion. There is a growth which is at 5%. Even at this growth or at this penetration, we're talking about a 5% growth. Chatting and social media, as we all know, is a big segment. And social commerce, I'm going to talk about social commerce very deeply, and that is growing at 15%. Video content. Now, nobody of us would actually ever imagine that video content could be so large. And video content as a social media is today growing at 25%. And the total number of users in India in video content is about 650 million users. That is like 2-3x of, let's say, print media. And you will be amazed to know the impact that this is having on the psyche of consumer today. If you look at service transactors, various service transactors, because it's basically when you talk about the online or the larger consumer landscape, there are many services that are being built around the core, and that segment is also growing in double digits, growing about at 18%. Product transactors, multiple products are getting created, whether it is about edtech, whether it is about fintech, whether it is about health tech, and that particular segment is also. So basically, every service is being productized today, and we will talk about it in detail. But the game in town today is to sort of convert a particular service as a product and can be sold as a product. There are multiple companies that have emerged in the last couple of years who have raised billions of dollars in this space. There are few of them; those have got created in India as well, and we will speak about that too. Now, if you look at, I was talking about the technology, and all of technologies that you see today is directly or indirectly linked to consumption. So whether it is payments, where we talk about the fintech industry has grown up by almost 70% in last 1 year. It's about COVID impact. The whole payments, fintech space has gone up by almost 1.7 times. If you look at health tech, it's gone by about 2x. Home services gone up by 2.5x. And edtech is gone up by 1.5x. And what is it leading to? It is leading to create behemoths in the country. See, before COVID happened, there were just two entities. It was Amazon and Flipkart, and essentially people felt that these are the two giants who will fight with each other in the online transaction space. But if you look at Amazon today, Amazon is no more an online marketplace. Amazon is an OTT player. Amazon Music is a music player. Amazon is obviously in the online space. It is now an integrated play, and it is providing you all services that you can think of. If you look at Flipkart, Flipkart was again an online retailer, but today Flipkart is not just that. It is also a travel company, just acquired Cleartrip. It is also an online pharmacy, just acquired Sasta Sundar, and now looking to acquire many more services. And it's just not about the new age startups or new age organizations, but even older houses like Tata and Reliance are creating a similar ecosystem around them. So it will be a very interesting space where you will find both the Davids and the Goliaths fighting with each other in a big way. And that will again lead to various consumer interests and trends getting changed because of this movement that is happening. D2C, this is another trend that we spoke about. And when we look at larger companies, now if you look at the brands that you talk, whenever you talk about brand, your consumption, you talk about FMCG companies, you talk about
मेरे को क्या है, मैं तो ये हर
Yeah, I request everyone to be on mute, please. Thank you. Yes, Rakesh.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Arvind. So if I have to go back, and we were all, sort of enamored by the great consumer companies, Asian Paints, Pidilite, Godrej, Rewards, and look at the value that they have generated in the last 10 years. Phenomenal value, right? In the last 10 years, Asian Paints has, generated a value of 7 times, Pidilite 10 times, Godrej 5, Marico 6, all of them. But here is something very different is being created, which will even make these growth segments look very, very small. Now look at a Nykaa, for example. Nykaa is today a 1 lakh crore company, and it is only 5-year-old. And out of the top 10 companies in India, if I see here, there is only 2 companies or maybe 3 who has a market cap of more than Nykaa. Asian Paints, Hindustan Lever, and Nestle. All of them, all these big boys who have been there for 100 years, are actually has a market cap which is less than Nykaa, which is a 5-year-old company. Now that's the change. That's the change that all of us will see again happening, and there will be many more Nykaas that's gonna be in the marketplace. And there are a few examples that we can see already. For example, if you look at Lysias, 3x in terms of valuation in just about 6 months. Country Delight and companies like Suncraft and insights like that. So you will see a huge explosion that's going to happen in this space as well. Now, if I have to deep dive a little bit more in D2C, and it is not about only let's say fashion or only about electronics anymore. It is about all the categories. So the D2C revolution that is happening today is actually happening at all fronts. It's no more a fintech play, or it's no more just a sort of an electronic play, but it is across all the segments, and this will further get intensified. I mean, we have Sachin, who has invested in Nykaa, and he can actually share his own experience with us, that when he invested in the company close to about 2 years back, and the kind of growth that they sort of projected for themselves and the growth that they actually achieved in 2 years probably would be 3-4x of what they had projected. So the kind of growth this segment that's going to see will actually put all the big boys to shame. And the other beautiful part of such companies is that they, because of their inherent value creation, they have been able to attract the best talent. Now, if you look at the top tier team at Nykaa, you won't be surprised to see most of them coming from the big boys like Reverse, Marico, and the likes. So these companies are just not about startups, but they are creating organizations in the most plausible manner. So that's another change and shift that is happening. So if you look at, my idea was to give you a sense of how the consumer trends will shape up in the next 10 years, and more so because of COVID, how this entire intensity or entire pace will actually get further intensified. And there are many and more examples that we've already seen. Now I will basically change my track, and there are 4-5 more slides that I would like you to see, where it also talks about what happened in last year. So 2021, we are in the month of Jan, it's a new year, but let us also see what has happened in the last 1 year. Has whatever that I spoke about, has it actually sort of got delivered, or whatever we said or whatever we thought will get played out? Actually, it's just not played out, but it played out spectacularly, and that's what you need to see. So let me just show you what happened in 2021. In 2021, the startup, the consumer, most of them are consumer companies, raised $36 billion. And in the last 3 years, in a combined manner, they raised $15 billion. So the entire process of this huge explosion is actually coming true. So $36 billion was raised in 2021. There were 44 unicorns in 2021 alone. And in the last 10 years, there were 37 unicorns. So you can imagine that in what got delivered in last 10 years actually got delivered in just 1 year, and what's going to happen, the year as we progress. And no more it is about e-commerce or fintech. It's about healthcare, it's about D2C, it's about every segment that one can imagine, and you will see companies that are breaking the shackles and becoming much larger. There are many examples, we can talk about it, but the idea is to just give you a sense that this whole shift, as I said, is not temporary, it is permanent, and it's going to become bigger, larger, huge, magnanimous, going forward. Now, the other trend that we saw was, how does it impact the capital markets? All of us are finance guys, all of us are somewhere related as CFOs or working for companies. Now, if you look at the market, now why it is important? For the first time, the entire, let's say, e-com or the startup industry actually got delivered to the core, because there was a thesis that was being planned, let's say 5-10 years back, when a new age business was being built and billions of dollars was being invested. Everybody said, no, it's a farce, it's a fad. Those people don't understand. They are getting cheap money. They're just blowing money. There is no business model. But finally, that has got delivered. And it has got delivered, as I said, beautifully. Last year, all these companies raised about $6 billion, and the total market cap that was being added was close to $40 billion in just 1 year. And there are many more who would hit the market in the next, as we speak in this year and going forward. Clearly, the message is that these business models are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and which is amazing for India, because I have been an investor myself in my earlier avatar, and the big challenge that all our LPs would actually complain to us that India does not have exits. And with this kind of exits, you will see far more money coming to this country. What you have seen is just a trailer. What's going to come ahead is going to be far, far bigger and much deeper. Social commerce. Now this is a very interesting trend. Now let me just explain you what do we mean by social commerce. We have dealt with e-com, we have dealt with online platforms, but today e-com and social media is coming together. When you go to a Facebook, when you go to WhatsApp, when you go to any of the social platforms, Instagram, you actually get engaged, and in the process you do a transaction. Gone are the days when you would go to a platform or the online sites where you will only buy because you are getting a higher discount. Amazon, Flipkart was largely driven by discounts. If I want to buy a Nike shoe, I'm getting it for maybe 10,000 bucks. If I go to a store and they give me for 8,000, I buy it. But today, that whole piece has moved on, because people used to think, oh, this is basically a discount game, and one day the discount will get over and everything will come down. Everything will come down like 9 cents. But that is not happening. Now they're engaging with you. Now they are talking about product discovery. They are making it personalized, and the size of the business today in India, if you see, as far as social commerce, is only $2 billion, and that is projected to be $70 billion in the next 10 years. From 2 to 70, it's like 35 times growth in the next 10 years. And if I have to compare that with China, in a similar phase, in just about 5 years, in China, the social commerce from $10 billion went to $260 billion. You'll be surprised to know that there's a company called Meesho. Meesho is already a $4.5 billion company. It's the largest social commerce company in the country, and most of you probably wouldn't have heard of it. Now that's what's going to happen, and that will create entrepreneurs across the country, even a small town or a big town. You can do it from your home. And basically, COVID has further accentuated this whole shift, where you will have a social entrepreneur or sitting at home and becoming part of this entire ecosystem that is being created today. The other big thing that has happened in this country is the digital payment, and you'll be surprised to know that we are the largest, after China, but in terms of growth, in last 1 year, if you look at the growth that has happened, in just 1 year, the UPI now is about 4.5 times the transactions on debit and credit cards put together. Can you imagine? The entire debit card and credit card put together, UPI is about 4.5 times. And UPI first came into India just about 3 years back. In terms of value, the total number of transactions that we do in the month of October only is about 4.5 billion transactions. And this number in let's say Jan of 2021 was about $2 billion. So in about 6 months, the volume of transactions doubled. But in terms of value, if you look at it, it's about close to about 9,000. It's about 9 trillion rupees. Nowhere in the world, kind of impact on digital payments has happened, which is what we are witnessing today in India. So this is another huge shift that we have seen in the last 1 year. Quick commerce. Now, this is another interesting phenomena that is getting created, that delivers stuff in 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I mean, Grover became Blinkist. We have a platform called Jefto. Swiggy has got another platform. Even both Flipkart, Amazon are creating similar platforms where they want to deliver everything in 20 minutes or in 10 minutes. Today, that market is less than $500 million. And in the next 5 years, that market is projected to be about $5 billion. Now everybody is, we are living in a world where we want things to happen instantly, and these are the trends that people are taking. The reason I'm giving this example is to show that how does business model get created based on your attitude, your wants, and your needs. And this is a beautiful example where, you're sitting at home and you want to have a cola and you want it in 10 minutes. There is somebody to deliver you that. And this segment is also, going to grow massively. The other theme that I have picked up is about creation of, the super app. Today, the entire Reliance retail or Jio platform, if you talk about, is a massive agglomeration of different services coming to you on one platform. And even Tata is also trying to do the same. They've just launched one, which is Tata. This is another thing which will happen in India. We will not be benefited by what Amazon or Flipkart gives us, but you will see, the JioMart and the Tata Neo being very able contenders or let's say champions to take on the global super apps in India. And both Tata's and Reliance is doing it beautifully, because they are not just growing their own platform, but they're also creating ecosystem through multiple acquisitions that they have done. Another theme which is very important again is about blockchain, crypto, NFT. These are all huge topics in themselves, and we need to maybe have people to come and speak about them. But I'm just talking about broader themes. When we talk about crypto, there are already 2 unicorns in the country. Which is CoinSwitch and CoinDCX, but their user base is between 7 and 14 million, which is already higher than the largest equity broker in the country, which is Zerodha. And 55% of crypto investors are based out of tier 2, 3 cities. Now, this is another trend that basically gives you a sense of how consumer is consuming not just data, but various platforms and various products that are being offered on it. Another big theme is the short video. Now, I did speak about the video earlier, and let me just give you certain data here, which is quite amazing. And I was also blown away when I looked at this data. You had TikTok in India, and that was banned in June of 2020. And when TikTok was banned, TikTok had about 170 million month active users, 170 million monthly active users in India. And once they left, it's basically plummeted. And today, in less than, let's say, about a year and a half, we are actually 1.3x of that. And you have Takata, you have ShareChat, you have got Moj, and that is a segment that is just exploding. And in terms of user base, if you look at the total user base in India, the largest user base in India is TV, where you have close to about 530 to 550 million users. Whereas on short video, we already have 170 to 190. Now it sounds crazy, right? But if you see the time that one spend on Reels and Instagram is actually crazy. It's almost the average time that is spent today by an active user is about 20 minutes. And through this, there will be a new commerce that will get created, where everything will actually be sold to you in a short video. So that's another trend that is being created, and one should look for that. The other quick theme, and this is probably the last theme that I can think about, is the new age Davids acquiring traditional Goliaths. We never imagined that smaller companies who have just been created will go on to acquire larger companies. So there are like 4 or 5 acquisitions that happened last year, which again gives you a trend that gone are the days that you can sit on your past laurels. There will be a contender who would just newborn and will come and challenge you in your own turf. Pharmacy acquiring Thyrocare, Baiju acquiring Akash Education, and they're paid. Look at the kind of money that they're paid to acquire this business. It's phenomenal. There is liquidity. There are people to back you. If you have the right management team, you can go in and acquire anything that you want. Yes. So I think I've spoken about a lot, Arvind, and I'm sorry that I crossed the brief that you gave, but I just thought this will help you to sort of set the platform, and I'm happy to take questions and observations and comments from all of you.
Great, thank you so much, Rakesh. That was really insightful and quite an eye opener. Just to summarize, I think we heard about just the sheer size of the Indian consumer space, along with the manner in which it is changing and the clear signals, for the future, along with themes around what can be some of the newer engines of growth, whether that is, crypto or short video, whether that is quick commerce or a combination of social media, e-commerce, etc., etc. So really, really fantastic and really exciting. And I think it makes us more and more confident. I do have a few questions, which, I want to first start as the devil's advocate, really, Rakesh, because, to be fair, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have been hearing about the consumer story now for about 7-8 years, right? It's not something that we've spoken only today. And we have seen that in the past 5 years, there are companies around the world that have gone from $300-400 billion valuation to $3 trillion valuation. And today you have the top 4 companies in the US. Although they're all technology companies, or in some senses there is tech involved, there are 4 $2 trillion companies. The largest company in India in the consumer space is worth $68 billion. How do you explain that? Where is it that in the last 5 years, the valuations in the listed consumer space have not even gone past $100-200 billion? Walmart is valued at about $400 billion today. So a 3 trillion, 4 trillion consumer market in, let's say, by 2025, the largest company is $100 billion. That's my first question to you. Where is the gap? What is the market missing?
No, I think a great question, Arvind. Yeah. And let me tell you that it's not too far that you will have few $100 billion market cap consumer companies in India. Mm-hmm. Let me give you a fact here. That Reliance Retail today is already a $100 billion value company. So
in the space, yes, yeah.
No, it is It is not unlisted. It is a subsidiary of a listed company. So I'm saying if you have to if you have to do a sum of parts valuation of, let's say, Reliance Industries, which is about 14.5-15 lakh crore, 10 lakh crore, actually about 7.5 lakh crore, sorry, comes from Reliance Retail. So you already have one, by the way, technically, but yes, it has to get listed. But there will be many more like that. I can assure you of that. The sheer size of the economy and the way it is exploding, it is just unprecedented. There is nothing of this kind that has happened anywhere in the world, I must tell you. If you look at China growth has been largely driven by exports. Yes, there is huge consumption in that country, but the kind of consumption that is happening here is absolutely very, very different. And it fuels different sectors at the same time. That's the beauty. If you look at our overall consumption market, if I have to break the 1,15,000 crore into different buckets, it's very well spread. We are not loaded towards one particular sector. And I feel that will lead $100 billion market cap companies in different sectors, if I may.
Right.
So that's how I see it.
And my other question is, how much of this growth and how much of this will be driven by Indian entrepreneurs versus MNCs benefiting from it? You have the Mercedeses and the Audis delivering their highest ever sales in India. You have Unilever just talking about.
I think in my view.
Finish the question. If you looked at the top bucket, it had P&G, Nestle, Unilever, and so on and so forth. So again, in the larger space, you mostly have MNCs that seem to be benefiting. Yes, some of the unicorns, and in fact, all of the unicorns are homegrown and they're sort of driven by India. But what's the opportunity for the Indian entrepreneur and the Indian way of doing things in the consumer space? That's something that I would really, want you to talk about. Yeah.
I will let Sachin come in here, because he has been part of the biggest success story in the Indian entrepreneur space. You know, he was a co-investor in Nykaa. So I'll let Sachin answer this question, and then I'll come with my thoughts.
Absolutely, great.
But
great
I think Sachin will do great justice with this question that you just asked. Yeah, Sachin, please go ahead. Is it there or?
Sorry. I had stepped out for a minute to the bio break. Sorry. I just heard my name. What is that?
No, Arvind, you can.
Yeah, Sachin, so I was asking Rakesh that, you know, ये जो opportunity है Indian consumer space में, is it going to be leveraged mostly by multinationals? Because I see words like Unilever, P&G, Nestle, Amazon, and so on and so forth, who are ruling the roost. What I wanted to know is that, let's say the Indian consumer space grows 2x or 3x from here. What are the big opportunities for Indian entrepreneurs, and how much of it will be really driven by homegrown businesses doing better or leveraging, and what part of it will come from MNCs coming in and extracting leverage? And Rakesh thinks that is something that you should throw some light on.
What I said is that Sachin has been part of the biggest Indian entrepreneurial success story in India, and he should answer this question. He's the best person to answer this question.
I think first and foremost, thanks so much. I think it's Rakesh and Rakesh show, but thanks for asking me. All I can say here, there are two ways to look at this. If you look at in terms of the traditional retailing, you had the biggest trouble of having limited shelf space. You know, पहले जब हम जाते थे कोई सेल्समैन से पूछो तो उसका जो एक ही एजेंडा होता था कोई भी एफएमसीजी के सेल्समैन का, और मैं जान के हिंदी में बात कर रहा हूँ बिकॉज़ हम लोग सब कनेक्ट करेंगे. ओके, वी आर ऑल यू नो सेम दिस थिंग. सो हमारा माल उसकी दुकान में कैसे, स्टोर में हमारा माल कहाँ रखा जाएगा और कहाँ पे दिखेगा, हाउ मच यू कैन ग्रैब द सेल्फ स्पेस इन अ पर्टिकुलर स्टोर. और वो स्टोर की जो साइज होती थी वो से अ पर्टिकुलर साइज होती थी, उस जगह की फाइट होती थी. Entire consumption story of the country has been about gaining the self space. When you come to the e-commerce, internet you have unlimited space. आप 50,000 आइटम रख लो या 50 लाख आइटम रख लो, you can keep anything. अगर आपने Amazon का एड देखा होगा, जब Amazon शुरू हुआ उसने बोला और दिखाओ. जब हम एज ए कस्टमर जाते हैं दुकानदार को बोलते भैया कुछ माल दिखाओ, नहीं पसंद आता बोला और दिखाओ. यू आर डिपेंडेंट ऑन द गाय हु इज शोइंग यू, वो कुछ निकाल के दिखाता है. Here you have absolutely the universe. You can go wherever you want and how much you want. आप एक कंपनी में जाओ, एक वेबसाइट पे जाओ, एक पर्टिकुलर आप जाओ, खाली Amazon का सोचो कि कितने प्रोडक्ट होंगे. ओके, एंड उसमें क्या होता था कि the guys who had deeper pockets used to win and the small guys had a disadvantage because वो कभी उनसे लड़ ही नहीं पाते थे. आज अगर रीजनल ब्रांड है तो वो बेचारा रीजनल क्यों रह गया? क्योंकि उसके पास में पैसे नहीं थे, उसके पास में सेल्फ स्पेस जीतने का साधन नहीं था. तो यूनिलीवर बन गया. When you talk about Unilever today, 50,000 करोड़ के आसपास की सेल है, और आई डोंट नो कितने लोगों ने ट्रैक किया होगा, 15% के आसपास, इफ आई एम नॉट मिस्टेकन, ऑलरेडी उनकी ऑनलाइन सेल आ गई. 15,000 करोड़ की आप समझो, सॉरी 7,500 करोड़ की सेल, 7,500 करोड़ की सेल तो यूनिलीवर की ऑनलाइन आने लगी है. आप सोचो, यूनिलीवर जैसी कंपनी को अगर 7,500 करोड़ का माल ऑनलाइन बेचना पड़े, तो यू कैन थिंक अबाउट द शिफ्ट दैट इज टेकिंग प्लेस. एंड नाउ अंडरस्टैंड दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग कि जहां पे यूनिलीवर और जैसी कंपनी को सेल्फ स्पेस सपोज उसका खाली हो गया, वो 20% जगह जो एक्वायर करी थी, वो स्पेस, नाउ थिंक अबाउट फ्रॉम अ स्मॉल वे. आपने कभी देखा होगा शार्क टैंक में कोई अचार वाला या कोई, एवरी सेकंड बिजनेस इज ए कंज्यूमर बिजनेस. वो खाने पीने की चीज है, स्नैक्स है, पहनने की चीज है. अल्टीमेटली लाइफ में 80% कंजम्पशन रोटी कपड़ा मकान पे आकर के टिक जाता है. ठीक है, एंड यू सी एवरी सिंगल कंपनी इन द शार्क टैंक और एनीवेयर एल्स, उनकी सबसे बड़ी स्टोरी क्या है, वो ला करके डाल देते हैं ई-कॉमर्स पे, आपका माल बिकना शुरू हो जाता है. राइट. सो आई थिंक इन टर्म्स ऑफ सेल्स स्पेस एंड इन टर्म्स ऑफ the specific question that you ask, whether this will be ruled by multinationals or Indian companies, I think what was the biggest trouble for Indian companies, that self space, they are liberated because of the e-commerce today. Okay, it is actually a paradigm shift for those companies. Now आपके प्रोडक्ट में दम होना चाहिए और आपकी कम्युनिकेशन और मार्केटिंग ठीक होना चाहिए. There is, I don't see the next $10 billion consumer companies from India being any problem. Okay, तो वो जो पीएनजी और यूनिलीवर जो था वो क्यों था, क्योंकि उसमें डीप पॉकेट थे, आके टीवी पे आपको समझा देते थे, राइट? No disrespect, they are great companies, but I think there can be now very, very big multi-billion-dollar companies coming from India, and we will be surprised to see that because entrepreneurship has gone to the rural hinterland. अब गांव से 100 करोड़ की कंपनी पैदा होगी और आपको समझ में भी नहीं आएगा कि अरे वाह, ये 100 करोड़ की कंपनी होगी. That's
Right.
my.
Rakesh, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think nothing more to be added to what Sachin said, and this is absolutely true because the moment capital becomes commodity, because that is what has happened. I think commoditization of capital is a big shift that has happened, and I absolutely agree with what Sachin said.
All right, great. Just a note to everyone: if you have questions, please write them in the chat. And in about after a couple of questions, I'll sort of start taking them from the audience. Now, my next question really is on the policy environment. Do you think I saw Tesla, Elon Musk tweeting yesterday about difficulties in the Indian environment, and generally people cribbing and complaining about the manner in which the regulations work or the lack of clarity. While all of this is great opportunity, do you think we are hobbled in any way by the prevailing policy environment, and what kind of important globally relevant regulatory changes do you think we need or we will see in the next 2-3 years for the consumer story to pan out very effectively?
No, I think this is a very interesting question being asked at a very important time, and
Yeah.
I would dare to say that today India is in forefront as far as policy initiatives are concerned. And look at what they have done in telecom. I think no other government globally could have dared to do what they've done. People have not been able to interpret that in the rightful manner, but in one shot, they have actually survived the entire sector. I mean, Vodafone couldn't have, honestly think about anything better for them, where such a huge debt has been converted into equity, and this couldn't have happened in any other government. Trust me on this. Even if you look at, the settlement that they did on global courts as far as Ken is concerned.
Right.
Is also something that has never been heard in the past.
Right.
So I think the current dispensation does understand that end of the day it is about capitalism. We can, I always say this, that the US is the largest capitalist country in the world, and US is also the largest socialist country in the world, because you can only distribute when you have it. So I think government understands that today, and all the policies are driven, in that particular direction. The number of trips that PM Modi does to US, is a reflection of that order. And I don't see anything getting stuck because of regulation. See, there will always be, one of, let's say, quid pro quo that keeps on happening. And we are a large country which has various, issues to be resolved at different point in time. But whatever interactions that I've had, and fortunately I've had few interactions in the recent past, and the policy narrative is very, very clear that everybody means business. And you will see both government and the regulator taking very effective steps as far as this is concerned.
Right. Thank you. One of the important premises of your themes was that the low-income India is sort of gradually moving towards mid and upper middle income India. Do you think that the lack of opportunities in the last 2 years, the COVID situation, the problems that daily wage laborers or small businessmen have faced, will in any way delay that process? Because you're seeing the monthly numbers come out, and a Hero MotoCorp and a Maruti are almost reporting flat sales, whereas a Mercedes and some of the others have reported 3x, 4x growth in their volumes. Do you think that there is wealth being created because of how the stock markets have delivered for the past 2 years? But in the real India, the cash flow generation has suffered significantly because of COVID. Give us a short-term perspective of the last 2 years and what implications this will have going forward.
I think it's a brilliant question, Arvind. See, I think if you look at the facts, I think GST is a huge barometer of how the entire economy is doing. We are, delivering record numbers when it comes to GST. And GST is basically encapsulates everything that happens in the country like ours.
Right.
So see, it's not about Maruti number, it's not about Hero Honda number alone. But if you look at Tata, for example, Tata Motor is now the second largest
Auto company in the country.
auto company in the country. So
Right.
so numbers are moving. You need to look at the overall numbers rather than looking at just one company. There are more people who are buying e-bikes today. There are more people who are buying e-scooters today. That's why Hero Honda numbers are not looking so exciting. So people are consuming. It's not that people are not consuming in the first place. The interesting factor that you need to understand is about rural consumption. So if you read the commentary of Hindustan Lever, and I think it's a Bible. All of you must read. If you want to know what's happening in the consumer world, you need to read what Hindustan Lever says. That today, because of COVID, and people moving back to their hometowns and people are working from home, a lot of shift has also happened as far as the income is concerned, where people have realized that they don't need to be in Bombay or Delhi to be able to deliver their jobs. And there's a massive shift that has happened to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. That is point number one. The average wages have actually gone up across the board. Right. So though there are people who have lost jobs at the low end because of activity being shifted. However, if you look at the overall average, that has gone up dramatically, especially in the IT space. The situation is of a different nature altogether. The average increase in IT salary is about 70 to 80%, which has never happened in the country. So there is a lot of money that is going into young people because if you look at the average age of IT professionals, they're all 20s. They're in their 20s, and suddenly they're getting 70 or 80% more money in their hands, which is basically driving consumption. So yes, I agree with you that there is a huge challenge when it comes to daily wage earners or people who are below the pyramid. But somewhere, the significant shift is happening where money is getting to young people. Yes, the government has to do something to be able to create opportunities for them, and I think government is doing a lot on that front. The entire infrastructure boom or infrastructure focus that you see today is basically trying to resolve or address that particular challenge that India has. Yeah. Fortunately, what is happening, we are seeing a lot of activity in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which are able to retain those people who have moved out from larger cities. And you will see that happening in the next 6 to maybe 12 months.
You mentioned a very interesting statistic that only about 12, 13 million people are in private sector jobs and 30, 40 million people are in government jobs, which means that a large part of the Indian population, which is not in agriculture, is still in small business, mom and pop stores and small businesses. Now, they are also consumers. Do you think increased digitalization and groceries moving online, like, what Sachin mentioned, that 20% of Unilever sales has already moved from offline to online. What will happen to these mom and pop stores who are part and parcel of our culture and our fabric if everything moves online? And they are also, they would definitely be India mein 1 crore retailer to honge na, chote mote. To
India mein there are not 1 crore retailers. Minimum, let me tell you this. So, let me just correct your statistics. Very good question. And yes. This is what, Piyush Goyal and company keeps on talking about, that what will happen to the last mile, person. It's a real threat, to be honest, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. However, they will have to be part of the system. See, end of the day, the world is becoming digital, and JioMart is trying to do that, where they are making the last mile, the last feet on the street as part of the ecosystem. It's still being thought. The social commerce, for example, that I spoke about, is essentially you will have to be part of this fabric, whether you like it or not. It's a thread that you need to be sewed as part of the overall thing. You cannot be a single thread outside of it. Now, that's a I would say, the existential challenge. But believe me, a human mankind, as I always say, has always been able to survive this sort of onslaughts. They will always find a way. A lot of people would come and tell me, when, in consumer, that, okay, what will happen to this company? That company will die. Nobody dies, to be honest. Everybody finds a way. And I'm sure, they are finding ways to be part of this ecosystem. Yes, they have, earlier what used to happen, there used to be a, in Hindi, we call it FAR, which is basically a knowledge arbitrage or which
yes.
people used to make just because people awareness was low. Today, everybody knows everything, right? So you cannot fool people. As long as you are asking for a margin, because everybody has a value to add. I might order like my medicines online, but my corner medicine wala still is a lot of value to me. as long as he delivers me a good service. For example, if you see all the medicine stores today in Bombay are giving you 15% discounts. 5 years or maybe 2 years back, we never knew that medicine may discount bhi hota hai, So
Absolutely.
it is about awareness, and people were taking advantage of lack of awareness of people, and hence they were flourishing. Now that will obviously, sort of get extinguished. But
you don't see an existential threat to these
not at all.
hundreds and thousands,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They will all move up the chain. They will start
Connected to
stocking
that
things.
is a question that Kanhaiya has asked. His battery is running out, so I'll quickly ask his question, but it's a very important one. That while a lot of things are digitalizing, the reverse is also true. You are seeing Lenskart and Pepperfry moving to brick and mortar. So his question is that, while offline companies are moving to online, we are now seeing that online companies are moving to offline. And without having a physical presence, they are finding it difficult to grow. Like, let's say, Nykaa or some of the other. So what's your view on, great question, Kanhaiya, but what's your view on how the hybrid model will work? And
it's a natural progression, Arvind.
Right.
It's about when you started, printing your annual reports, you used to work from office with 3 chairs and 1 table, right? Now today you have such a beautiful office behind you, correct?
Right.
So it's a progression, right? So everybody progresses in life. And these are all companies, great companies being built, and you need an experience. So what does Lenskart do for you? When you go to the airport, there's a Lenskart store. You have got 30 minutes to kill. What do? You cannot kill that 30 minutes on your phone on Lenskart app, right? But if there's a store, I will definitely go there, try 2-3 specs. I might like one. I may not buy it there and then, but I'll see, I went to Lenskart, I found the product good. Let me try to buy it online tomorrow.
Right.
Correct? So it's about experiences. It's about engaging. See, please understand, engaging the consumer is the biggest thing. That basically creates a long-term loyalty or long-term attachment to you. And that cannot happen virtually alone. I mean, we talk about metaverse, people are talking about this stuff.
But then what about margins? Because, if you're giving all of this experience, it costs money. If I just bought a trouser online, and the service they've given me is fantastic. They sent it, they picked it up, they sent somebody to measure it. They're doing 3 rounds of alterations, etc. Now, I know that in 2,500 rupees, it's not possible to do all of that.
But Arvind, that's where you're mistaken. Right. Because what they are not providing you a trouser, they are acquiring a customer. They know that if one trouser fits Arvind Agarwal, the next 20 trousers, we don't have to go to his store or his home.
Right.
Because once he gets Arvind Agarwal, he gets Arvind Agarwal for the rest of his life.
Why is the market not respecting that acquisition of customer story from a Paytm? Where is it that, for every Nykaa,
no, but
have a Paytm?
The problem with Paytm, honestly, is the
by the
business
way,
model.
That was a question from Manish Ji. So I'm just
no, I'll tell you, it's a great question. It's a great question. The problem is there has to be a business model. End of the day, everybody is struggling in Paytm that what is the business model. See, with UPI coming into play, see, Paytm is largely a wallet play, correct? Now they are obviously getting into every sort of payment services. But if there is no MDR as far as Paytm is as far as UPI is concerned, and if there is no margin to be made, what will you earn? I mean, there has to be some gap, right? When the example that you gave about your trouser, there is a cost of clothes, there is a cost of making, there is a cost of transportation. End of the day, there is light at the end of the tunnel. But when I look at Paytm, there is no light only, correct? So there is no tunnel, there is no light. That's the challenge. If I look at Zomato, for example, now this is a very good question. You have to understand why companies are valued the way they are valued.
Right.
If I look at Zomato, today Zomato is creating a space for you. Yesterday, I'll tell you, it was Lodi, like Sakrat, for example. No, and I'm sorry that I did not send it to you, but I'll still tell you that it was Sakrat and I wanted to send Gaver to, a couple of my friends. I just ordered on Zomato and it was delivered. So they are creating something new for you and in the process asking for a price. Today, problem with Paytm is that Paytm is giving you something which 10 other people are giving you and they're not charging you for a price. So that is a question that is, has not been answered, to be very honest. Yes, they are all over the place. They want to do everything under the sun. But how will they do it and whether they will ever make money is a big question mark that nobody is able to answer right now.
So Arvind, on that point, just to add, that then the entire story around fintech, because that was the most important fintech, Paytm, the biggest, the poster boy Modi advertised for Paytm, in a way. But then if that is a flop, in a way, what will happen to the entire battery of people who are in that space? and then the entire ecosystem around these UPIs.
Right.
No. So
it's not just
it's
UPI, it is about, you see, Unilever at 60,000 crore, 50,000 crores of sales makes 10,000 crores of cash profit and delivers 9,500 crores of dividend to its shareholders. Where is the ability of these companies to pay back anything to investors in the next 5 years?
Correct. Then why the valuation? Why Paytm was given 2150 as a issue price by all the merchant bankers and IBs, and then it corrected 50%. So there is a big, what is shown by the media, the news channels, and what is the ground reality. It takes some time to realize, but there is a big gap. That's what I wanted to understand from Rakesh.
Yes, sir.
No, it's a great question, and I don't know whether Anup is there, because Anup is a fintech expert, and he can probably bring in lot of insights. Anup, are you there by any chance? I don't know whether he's there or not. But let me tell you something, Manish. If you look at the entire fintech industry, and we are taking example of Paytm all the time. The challenge is, you look at other business models, for example. You have a Policy Bazaar, you have other fintech institutions that are being built today. There is a customer acquisition, and what do you do with the customer is important. I think that is where it is boiling to. Whereas in case of Paytm, they want to be a super app, they want to sell movie tickets, they want to sell air tickets. There is a lack of focus. That's the challenge. The challenge is not about the core product. And to your example of Modi and Paytm, when Paytm was launched, it was a wallet. And when it was a wallet, there was a business model, because there was a certain amount of cash that you would generate or income that you would generate because of the money that is being in the wallet. That model has changed. Too bad for Paytm, if I must tell you. But that's a fact. Now government, because UPI has been driven by NPCI, and they have taken a view that this is a change there, and just imagine the kind of impact that it has done in the overall ecosystem. Phenomenal. I mean, $4.5 billion transactions a month, 9 trillion worth of transactions a month, 4.5 times of debit. And so there is a merit in what, let's say, the NPCI has done. Now, unfortunately, the business model does not suit what Paytm does. So it will have to pivot itself to be able to work in this new landscape and maybe focus more, is my view.
Great. Thank you. So speaking of pivots, I have a question from Shama Kejriwal. Just wanted to check, apart from digitalization and people staying more at home, those are two clear pivots that COVID has provided. What are some of the other COVID-related shifts? Sorry, this question is from Raviji. What are some of the other COVID-related shifts in consumer preferences that you see happening going forward?
So it's a good question, Arvind, and I tell you something very interesting. I think the biggest consumer shift that COVID has actually brought about is value for quality. See, what has happened, India was always a price-sensitive market. Kitna deti hai, that's the ad, that's Maruti. And one of the answers to your question is why Hero and Maruti is not selling as much as they are selling in the past, because people are willing to pay a price. See, what has happened today, I'll tell you, when pre-COVID, when I was in my office and a tea is being served to me, I will never ask my guy, "Acha, kaun si chai hai, kaun si brand ki chai pila rahe ho aap?" Nobody would know it actually. But when I'm at home, I always want to know, "Acha, which tea are you offering me?" Because I never had tea at home, right? I never had coffee at home. So I ensure that I buy the best quality product when I'm at home. And that is a shift that is happening. So if you look at the premiumization that has happened in everybody's portfolio across the board, has been phenomenal. And that is what is leading to a massive shift in gross margin. You look at gross margins of all the top tier FMCG companies that has got expanded because more and more better quality products are being sold in the market. And I think that is one big shift that has happened. The other big shift, and if there are ladies in the audience, I must tell you, is the importance of women. That is the biggest shift that has happened. See, what has COVID done? The moment COVID struck, we were all at home. And the boss of the house was basically our mothers and our wives. They ensured that everything has been taken care of. And never ever in our life we realized their importance in our lives, because we wouldn't have existed without them. And they are now becoming the decision makers, mind you.
Right.
So more than 50% of decisions that are now being taken are actually being taken by women. So that is another philosophical shift that has happened post-COVID, and that will lead to a huge impact in consumption. Now, because see, earlier there were such set patterns that, okay, ye aise hona chahiye, this will happen like this. All of that has changed. I think COVID has made a huge change in the way we think. The other big shift that is going to happen because of COVID is, I would say the whole employment scenario. See, people had offices, and work from home now will actually become a permanent change. 2 days, 3 days in a week will actually become very, very natural. That will lead to less transportation. That will lead to less pollution. That will also lead to, people being more aware about what's happening around them. I think the level of awareness in all of us has gone up, thanks to COVID. So, and this will lead to, again, various sectors will get directly impacted because of that.
Great. Now let's talk a little about you. We have time for 2 more questions. Now, you have been part of the consumer story as an investor, as an M&A player, as somebody who's now leading things on the media side. You've been a part of how Starbucks has grown in India. You've seen how homegrown brands like Soulful have done. You've helped a Parag Milk Foods on one end, and you've helped an AU Finance on the other end. Can you tell me, in your last 10 years of looking at the Indian consumer space so correctly, what are 3 or 4 points of advice that you will give to entrepreneurs and participants about how to win in this environment? Because, a lot of us are wondering what to do next and, how to leverage this. So tell us a little about what are the 3 or 4 learnings and lessons that you personally think are very important. And then maybe give us examples of 2 people who got it right and 2 people who got it wrong.
I think this is a tough one. We could have a session on this actually, Arvind.
Right.
But let me give you some broader thoughts.
Yes.
I think in order to succeed, the first and foremost thing that you need is passion. Passion about anything that you do. Because if you really want to succeed, you should assume in your mind that you are the best at it.
Right.
And tomorrow if you're on a tennis court, you have the ability to beat Rafael Nadal also on clay court, by the way. So that is the kind of deep understanding and deep passion that you need to have about whatever sector that you want to be in. The problem today is that there is so much noise. Everybody talks about everything. And you want to be sort of the jack of all and master of none. So I think you need to have deep belief, deep knowledge, and you have to keep on doing the same thing. That book which Michael Gladwell had. You need to do something for at least 10,000 hours to master it, and you should believe in it. That is very, very important. I think that is something that is important for everybody to know. Second is that you should assume that you will fail, or you will have obstructions in your tryst with destiny, and you should not feel bad about it. I have had situations where I have gone through multiple challenges when let's say, moving from a private equity world where you are in your cushy rooms and you are the when you are writing checks to investors, from where to get into an organization which is a 150-year-old organization where everybody is threatened around you. How do you change that culture? You have to be the person who should always believe that you are the change that this place needs. I think that belief is very important, and that is where people have delivered. Now, if you look at, let's say, you asked about 2 examples. I think Falguni is a great example. Where having such a beautiful career at Kotak, where she was the ace investment banker. She left her job, and she did not go into a flush office to start with. The first office that she started was basically a gala, as we call it in Bombay, in Toddy Mills. Right from the Kotak towers in BKC to a gala in Toddy Mills. I think that's the flexibility that you need to have if you want to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is not about making beautiful business plans and making beautiful presentations, but it is about you doing it yourself. I think that's the key. And you need to be ready to do it at every stage of your life. Whether one of the reasons why when I look at times, I mean, so when people normally join groups which are younger, and I have been joining groups which are older. So I thought Tata is the oldest group in the country. They just completed 150 years, but I'd never realized that Times Group is 175-year-old, which is even older than Tata. So
next you'll go to the Wadia Group.
So what I'm trying to say is that you should have that gumption and passion in yourself that, okay, I am the change agent and I'll make it happen. Having confidence in yourself is very important, and deep knowledge about what you want to do. Absolute deep knowledge. You have to go through reams of papers yourself. You have to it's like all hands on deck. There is just, you go to a DMart store and you realize there is happening. This is happening there. You need to go and feel it yourself. It is not about, people talk about Radhakrishan Damaniji started DMart, XYZ, but people don't know that the first store of DMart was actually opened along with the first store of Big Bazaar. So two chains opened at the same time. First 15 years, Big Bazaar was maybe 50x of DMart. But in the next 5 years, DMart is, you said the most valuable retail company in the country by a margin. It's a 3 lakh crore market cap company. And believe me, they are not finished yet. The best of DMart is yet to come. So unwavering focus in what you want to do, deep knowledge, and passion to do it every day, time and again, is what is needed.
Right. Great. Thank you so much. And just the absolute last question before I give it to Rohan for a quick vote of thanks is, and we could go on and on, it's very interesting, but it's already close to 6:30, so we have to wrap up. Give us your 5 big predictions, personal predictions. They have to be really unique, not related to the numbers that we see in consulting decks. But what are the top 5 predictions that you think that are going to come true in the next 4 or 5 years in the Indian consumer space? What makes you excited?
No, I think the most exciting part for me, if you ask me, and just to tell you that Times Group as a group is not just into media. We are into digital space in a large. In fact, we are the 3rd largest digital platform in the country after Google and Facebook. And a lot of people don't know that we own Dana, we own Magic Bricks, we own ClickBuzz, we own MX Player, and many more dine out such platforms in the country. So there is this entire digital ecosystem that is being created in this country is absolutely unprecedented. But if you ask me about those 5, I think the creation of brands, the creation of why is an Apple a $3 trillion market company is essentially the promise that brand offers to you. I think that is where we are still lacking. There is not a brand in India apart from Tanishq. If you ask me, I'm a jeweler myself, and I'm telling you, Tanishq has been able to crack it. When you buy a Tanishq jewelry, you feel, okay, I have bought something that I can rely on. I think that is what has to be created in the consumer world. And that's a challenge that has been basically in front of all the Indian entrepreneurs. I am not too excited about market caps. I'm not too excited about how much revenue do you do, but can you create a global brand? I think that is what is required. Tesla is a global brand, right? Mercedes, you spoke about Mercedes, a global brand. It is not just about Mercedes as a car, but what Mercedes promises you and delivers you time and again is what makes it different, right? That is what is required. I think those are the things that we need to work. And I think in the next 5 years, you will have Indian brands which will deliver you that. Second is this entire explosion. See, India, you have to understand that it's a global economy. And I think COVID has made, as we say, geography, history, even more. So I don't think we should now think about India, if you ask me. Now we need to think about world. When an American company is formed, when Tesla or Microsoft, they think about world. They don't look at US as their marketplace, right? I think we need to start thinking like that. I think that is another shift that has happened. And there are few companies like, for example, Reliance is actually thinking like they want to become a global player, right? They are no more thinking about India as their marketplace, which is another huge thing. The other, if I have to talk about 2-3 bigger things, if you see, is the other huge thing that has happened in India is actually deleveraging. For example, India was always a country where all the large corporates were saddled with a lot of debt. Now, what does debt do? It just does not give you an elbow space to do multiple stuff. That has actually happened. So that is another, I would say, the third thing. The other big shift that I see in India is decarbonization. So if you look at the overall segment, the investor, so just to give you certain numbers, out of the total about 400 gigawatts that India has in terms of power, we had a target of achieving a 40% target by 2030. You'll be shocked to know that we've already got that target.
2021, right?
Yes. So I'm saying that these are the trends. The whole ability to think big, and I think all credit should go to PM Modi for this, because he has given this ability to us to think big. And I think after a long time, in my view, Indians are calling the shots. Forget about, I don't want to take the names of the CEOs and all that is small for me. But I think the big thing is about, Indian corporations will actually rule certain segments.
I think we can agree that India will call the shots as far as the consumer market goes, though we can't assume that China or US will not grow, or that some other, South Asian or African
they will. All of them will grow.
but it's just that India will probably surpass those growth figures, and we'll really do justice to the
It's
potential
not.
we have as a country. Right.
I think it's about the trust. See, I was telling with somebody, when you meet a Robin, sorry, Robin is there in the call, but I'm not, or you meet a Ramesh. When you meet a Ramesh, you feel good about it. This is the brand equity that India has. That okay, these people are good people. They are all hardworking people. Whatever they say, they will deliver. This is a very interesting trend and interesting fact. Why does global companies, or especially US companies, have Indian CEOs? Because they feel that these people are trustworthy. And if we put them at that particular post or that particular position, they will do a good job. And that particular, I think, message is now going across the world. And you will see a lot more Indian companies, will come to a center stage and will play an important role in the overall world economy.
Lovely. So thank you very much, Rakesh. Been really, really insightful. Rohan will now sort of, give us a small vote of thanks. But before I hand it to Rohan, just wanted to make the announcement that, we've already planned the next session, and the next session is on 5th of February. So guys, please mark your dates. And on that day, we have Bikash Bogi, our very own treasurer. He's going to be speaking on the impact of budget provisions on direct taxes. And he'll be joined by Narendra Ji, who is another member of the executive committee, and he'll be speaking about indirect taxes, and will be moderated by our very own another executive committee member, Vikas Khanna Ji. So these are the three people that will be talking about the budget. This is on 5th of February at 5 p.m. We will be sending out the formal invite and notification soon, but just wanted to say, please have your calendars marked. And now, Rohan, if you can just quickly do the honors so that we can call the evening to a close. Thank you.
Yeah. No, sure. Thanks for that, Arvind. Good evening, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to deliver this vote of thanks for this event to Rakesh, Arvind, and the management committee who planned and executed this, rather engaging AddaVantage session and so successfully, right? I would like to thank Rakesh for actually taking time out for this from his, very busy schedule. And bringing his nuanced insights into the very evolving, I would say, Indian consumer space. Especially, some of the explanations he provided and the insights he brought, like, the fact that the social commerce piece is growing at almost 50% a year, video content is growing at 25%, much faster than the print media. And also the fact that, the new age businesses like Nykaa is already valued more than some of the age-old leading FMCG players in India. They were especially very enlightening to somebody like me, at least. I would also like to, thank Arvind for the moderation of this session. It is always a pleasure to listening to, Arvind talking his lively dialogues and presentations. So Arvind, really thank you for that. Finally, I would like to thank each and every one of the attendees here for their time and attention on a Saturday evening. We at the Gitanjali Express group look forward to more such sessions. As Arvind just alluded to, we already have a 5th Feb session planned. This is in the light of the upcoming budget release, so should be very exciting and interesting as well. And we really look forward to planning and getting to you more such AddaVantage sessions where the business and industry leaders would be sharing their views and insights. So thank you, everyone, and please take care. The COVID is still there; it's not gone. It's the low risk thing. I agree, but still, the death numbers are still increasing. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
He's sending so many.
Pankaj ji, can we have the copy of the presentation?